Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we give you the shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we are immersing ourselves in really a high-stakes story of strategic reinvention. We're tracking the dramatic journey of ONPASSIVE, focusing specifically on a period that our source material calls the Silent Storm. This was basically a strategic withdrawal from public view, which was then followed by just this massive technological comeback.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just your average business turnaround story. What our sources paint is, well, it's a picture of a company facing really existential threats. And instead of just reacting, they chose resilience. They used that quiet time to completely rebuild their core technological infrastructure.
Right.
So our mission today is really to unpack the specific detailed blueprint. We're talking about the 5 core pillars, the tech features, everything that was implemented under Ash Mufareh's leadership during this transformation. We really want to get into how they built what they call an invincible ecosystem.
And the tension, you feel it immediately. The whole philosophy of this period seems captured in that opening quote from Ash Mufareh himself. He said, "Victory is not built in comfort. It's built in persistence and resilience." That quote really feels like the thesis for everything that followed, suggesting that, the hardest period was actually the most productive one.
It really forces you to analyze the difference, doesn't it? Between what looked like failure from the outside and what was actually a calculated strategy internally. I mean, the world saw silence, maybe struggle, but the internal narrative suggests they were deep in foundational construction.
Building mode.
Exactly. It implies that real strength is forged when external pressures are maxed out, but away from the spotlight. And that's where we need to start, I think, understanding the sheer heat they were under.
Okay, let's unpack this silent storm then. First, let's define the environment. Before they pulled back, the sources indicate they were navigating some incredibly complex external headwinds. What were the specific pressures that made a public-facing operation, untenable? What forced them into this period of internal focus?
Right. The landscape was intensely adversarial. And it wasn't just one thing, it was multifaceted. We can really isolate 3 distinct high-impact challenges that sort of necessitated this strategic retreat. The first one, and you could argue the most dangerous for a global operation like this, was direct government interference.
Okay, government interference. That sounds, bureaucratic maybe, but also crushing. What does that actually mean for a tech ecosystem that's trying to be global and borderless?
Yeah, it's far more than just, standard regulatory hoops. Think about it. You're building a unified platform. It's centered on finance, AI, data, potentially touching every corner of the globe. Interference in that context means navigating this incredibly fragmented, sometimes hostile, patchwork of international laws.
Like data sovereignty laws.
Exactly. Data sovereignty laws, where and how user data must be stored. Then you've got fintech licensing hurdles, which are different in dozens of countries. Plus, you have governments suddenly shifting their attitudes towards things like blockchain or digital currency integration, which are key parts of a modern ecosystem.
Wow. So it wasn't like tackling one market. It was like fighting on 50 different regulatory battlefields at the same time. And each one demanded unique compliance, unique measures, all of which could just drastically slow you down or even block you completely.
Precisely. And navigating that regulatory maze, it eats up immense resources just to stay compliant. Any misstep could lead to crippling fines or even operational shutdowns in really key regions.
Sure.
So the interference wasn't just passive red tape. The sources suggest it was often active resistance from centralized authorities who weren't comfortable with a disruptive, potentially decentralized model.
Okay, so that's the regulatory pressure cooker. And that was compounded by the second major headwind you mentioned, intense competition from established global tech giants. We're talking trillion-dollar companies here, right? The ones with decades of dominance.
Oh, yeah. This is your classic David versus Goliath scenario, but playing out in the realm of deep technology. When ONPASSIVE put forward its vision, this AI-driven all-in-one ecosystem, they were instantly stepping into the ring with giants who basically own the existing infrastructure.
Like the cloud providers, the big communication networks.
Exactly. The cloud platforms, the established comms networks, the dominant e-commerce marketplaces. And these giants, they have practically limitless capital. They can acquire competitors, or more commonly, they can just engage in aggressive feature imitation, basically designed to suppress innovation bubbling up from below.
But the sources suggest the competition was more than just market strategy, wasn't it? It was about resources, too.
Absolutely. These giants possess massive entrenched user bases, decades of them, and they have proprietary data sets that are constantly feeding and improving their own AI models. For a startup, even one with a really bold vision like ONPASSIVE, trying to overcome that network effect, that sheer resource disparity, it's almost impossible without doing something radically different. They simply couldn't win by playing the same game on the giant's terms.
Which brings us to the third external pressure. And this one sounds perhaps the most psychologically damaging: the relentless critics who questioned Ashmufar's fundamental vision.
Yeah, skepticism is normal in tech. We see it all the time. But our sources paint this as more than that, a sustained campaign of doubt. It wasn't just, oh, will this product work? It was an attempt to undermine the very credibility of the leadership and the core promise made to this global network of founders and affiliates. And you have to remember, in a decentralized, community-driven model like ONPASSIVE's, trust isn't just important, it's the primary currency.
Right, so attacking the vision
Is attacking the belief system of the entire network. It cuts right to the core.
Okay, so given this intense hostility, regulatory, competitive, reputational pursuit, the decision to pull back, this strategic retreat, starts to make a lot more sense. But wasn't that silent storm strategy incredibly risky? I mean, did the sources talk about any internal debate, choosing silence versus, say, an aggressive public defense?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the sources imply, yes, it was a huge gamble, a very high-stakes one. Think about it. An aggressive public defense might feel good, but it would have diverted critical resources. Money, time, focus towards PR battles they probably couldn't easily win against those giants.
Fighting fires instead of building the engine?
Precisely. The internal decision, as laid out later in the blueprint we'll discuss, was to treat the silence as a necessary cloak, a time for metamorphosis. The leadership seemed to understand that just making promises wouldn't cut it anymore. Only functioning, genuinely unshakable technology could actually silence the critics and validate the vision in the long run.
So what exactly were they doing during this period of public silence? It couldn't have been just tweaking things. It had to be monumental work, given the outcome.
Well, it was described as a full-scale rebuilding phase, really focused on fortifying the very foundation. The key areas of internal development seem to be: first, perfecting these revolutionary AI-driven systems. That means prototyping, stress testing, new machine learning models specifically tailored for business automation. Second, implementing advanced security protocols, moving beyond just industry standards to develop proprietary defense mechanisms. We'll get into O-Verify and O-Virtual later. And third, maybe most crucially during that quiet time, actively rebuilding trust with its global network of founders and affiliates.
Wait, how do you actively rebuild trust when you're publicly silent? That seems counterintuitive.
It required a very targeted kind of transparency, but aimed inward towards the internal community. So while they were silent to the wider public, the sources suggest the internal communication lines were humming. They were emphasizing the why behind the delays, providing quite granular updates on the progress they were making on hardening the architecture. They had to show the community, the founders, that this silence was productive, that the foundation wasn't crumbling but actually getting stronger.
Proof of life, but focused on resilience.
Exactly. The founders needed solid proofs that the company wasn't stagnating, but was laser-focused on building that resilience, knowing that when they did reemerge, it had to be overwhelming.
It really sounds like the silent storm was less about hiding and more about preparing for total war, technologically speaking.
That's a good way to put it. This period of intense, really persistent internal development was the absolute precursor to what they call the Great Comeback. The sources argue very strongly that the robustness we see later in Ecosystem 2.0, its ability to handle massive traffic loads, sophisticated attacks, complex global regulations, is a direct result of surviving and building within that pressure cooker environment of the silent storm. The foundation, as Mufari said, was built through persistence and resilience, not comfort. It was forged in the fire, away from easy success.
Okay, so that strategic foundation, built under immense pressure, leads us directly to the architectural plan they implemented during that silent period. Ashmufar's vision, as you noted from the sources, wasn't just to build a successful company, but a movement. That distinction feels important. It's more than just semantics, right? What's the strategic significance of framing it as a movement?
Well, if you connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally changes the economic model, you see. A traditional tech company, it sells a product to customers. Its success is measured primarily by centralized profit flowing back to the company. But a movement, at least in the context described for ONPASSIVE, implies something different. It suggests a decentralized coalition, The founders aren't just customers buying a tool, they're framed as stakeholders. Their individual success is intrinsically linked to the overall health and growth of the entire ecosystem.
So it shifts the focus from purely transactional relationships, I pay, I get a service, to something more like collective participation. It almost turns the global network itself into a kind of self-sustaining growth engine.
That's the core idea. The goal is to try and transcend those traditional corporate boundaries, to create an economic structure where the benefits generated by the ecosystem are shared and distributed back through the network. And strategically, this acts as a powerful defense mechanism against competitors too, because the allegiance of the network isn't just based on the utility of one particular tool, it's driven by this shared ideology and, frankly, a shared financial stake in the movement's success.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's dive into the actual architecture, the 5 main strategic goals or pillars that formed the blueprint for this new ecosystem. The one they needed to build to be, as they put it, innovative, inclusive, and invincible.
Right. The first pillar tackled a major organizational challenge that often comes with rapid expansion: unifying platforms. The goal was merging all the different ONPASSIVE products into one single seamless ecosystem.
Why was that consolidation so vital? Especially coming out of that period of silence, what problem did it solve?
It directly addressed a common pitfall you see with scaling tech companies: fragmentation, silos. When you have lots of different tools, but they're all separate, they don't really talk to each other effectively. This leads to data silos, which hinders insight. It leads to a poor, disjointed user experience. And it creates massive overhead in terms of maintenance and security. You're patching holes everywhere.
Instead of just one front door.
Exactly. So by unifying everything into a single ecosystem, essentially, one cohesive digital workspace, ONPASSIVE aimed to solve 3 big problems at once. 1, improve user navigation dramatically, make it easy. 2, enable seamless cross-product data sharing. This is absolutely crucial for making the AI function superiorly across all tools. And 3, drastically reduce the complexity of maintenance and critically security fragmentation. It's really the difference between managing a whole portfolio of kind of disjointed apps versus operating one single highly optimized technological engine.
Okay, unification first. Next, they clearly prioritized defense, moving from feeling vulnerable to aiming for invincible. Advanced security systems. The sources specifically mention proprietary tools like OVerify and OVirtual.
Yeah, security clearly shifted from being, just a feature to arguably the defining feature of the new architecture. And this makes sense, given the cyber attacks they reportedly withstood during the Silent Storm. It had to be paramount. Let's break down those 2 tools mentioned. OVerify seems focused on establishing a trust-based network. It does this by implementing advanced Know Your Customer, KYC, and identity verification protocols. This goes way beyond just simple password protection. The goal is to actively combat fraud, to ensure that every participant within the ecosystem is genuine. That's absolutely critical for financial transparency and the overall integrity of the movement.
Makes sense. And OVirtual. That was described almost like a digital fortress.
That's a good analogy. OVirtual represents the proprietary, perhaps military-grade defense layer they built. Our sources imply it utilizes something akin to a zero-trust architecture. What that means is, basically, no user, no device, no application is inherently trusted, regardless of whether it's inside or outside the network perimeter. Everything has to be verified.
Constantly verifying.
Constantly. Furthermore, it seems to incorporate AI-driven threat detection, so it's not static. It's constantly monitoring network traffic patterns, looking for anomalies, and dynamically adjusting defenses in real time. This is what reportedly makes the platform resistant to the kind of sophisticated, potentially state-level cyber attacks they had already experienced. It's a defense system designed to evolve alongside the threats.
Wow, okay. Pillar 3 then focuses on finance and access, addressing the global nature of this movement. Global payment freedom. The goal was re-engineering OWallet to enable secure, fast, and borderless transactions.
And this is a hugely complex engineering challenge, make no mistake, especially if you're aiming for instant, multi-currency transactions globally. Think about traditional banking systems. They're notoriously slow, burdened by intermediary fees, and chopped up by geopolitical borders. Re-engineering OWallet likely involved creating a sophisticated internal settlement system, something that could handle instant liquidity across dozens of different currencies, while simultaneously maintaining regulatory compliance in all these diverse regions: Africa, Asia, the Americas, everywhere.
Beyond just the convenience factor, what's the core strategic advantage here?
Inclusion, that's the key. For members, especially founders in developing economies, things like high transaction fees or long withdrawal times are massive barriers. They prevent real financial stability and participation. OWallet's re-engineering, as described, aims to ensure that financial freedom and participation are genuinely global. It removes those archaic barriers. It makes it feasible for any founder, anywhere, to transact instantly, securely, regardless of their local currency stability or local banking infrastructure. It's really the engine designed to activate that shared success model on a global scale.
Got it. And that brings us to the core identity, really, of the ecosystem with pillar number 4, AI automation everywhere. Integrating AI deep into every single tool for smarter business decisions and user personalization.
Yes, this is arguably the key competitive differentiator against those global giants we talked about. Instead of just bolting AI on as a fancy feature here or there, the blueprint describes integrating it into the fundamental operational DNA of every tool within the ecosystem. We're talking about things like predictive analytics for marketing decisions, where the AI doesn't just report past data, but analyzes thousands of data points to actively suggest the optimal advertising spend or the best content strategy to use next.
Hyper-personalization, too.
Exactly. Hyper-personalization, particularly mentioned in the e-commerce sector with OShop. The idea is that the platform dynamically alters the user experience based on their real-time behavior, making it much more relevant and effective.
Can you give us a concrete example? Let's say I'm a small online business owner using the ecosystem. How does this AI automation actually help me day to day?
Okay, good question. So, if you as that business owner are using the ecosystem for your marketing, say, using OTracker, the AI, isn't just going to give you a dashboard with charts. It's designed to automatically identify which keywords are underperforming in your campaigns. It might suggest adjusting your bid strategies automatically. It could even draft alternative marketing copy variations for you based on analyzing successful campaigns from similar businesses across the entire global network. This level of sophisticated, automated business intelligence. Until recently, that was really only available to massive corporations who could afford entire teams of data scientists. The goal here is to democratize it, embed it right into the tools everyone uses.
Powerful stuff. Okay, finally, the 5th pillar. This one feels more philosophical, tying the whole movement idea together. Community empowerment. Focusing on a structure where success is shared, making victories collective.
This pillar really defines the structure of the rewards and incentive system within ONPASSIVE. The mechanism, as described, is designed to ensure that the success generated by the growth of the overall ecosystem, more users, more transactions, more activity, is somehow distributed back to the network of founders and affiliates. The aim was clearly to incentivize collective growth over individual hoarding. To counteract that inherent winner-take-all imbalance you often see in traditional tech platform models. Essentially, it tries to turn every founder into an active advocate for the entire platform, not just their own little corner of it. This creates a potentially very powerful, intrinsically motivated, self-propagating network effect.
So pulling these 5 pillars together, unifying platforms, advanced security, global payment freedom, AI everywhere, and community empowerment, the goal was clearly ambitious. Make the comeback innovative, inclusive, and invincible. This wasn't just a software update. It sounds like the creation of a whole technological state almost, designed to withstand any future storm.
That's a really interesting way to frame it. It was definitely a strategic shift, moving away from just playing defense against market pressures towards building an entirely new playing field, a field where their rules, integrity, shared success, advanced security were the bedrock foundation. The successful implementation of this complex blueprint during that silent period would absolutely dictate whether their eventual public return was a triumph or a fizzle.
Okay, so after that long, intense period, the silent storm, the internal development based on those 5 core pillars, the moment of truth finally arrived. This turning point, the launch of the new Ecosystem 2.0, it really had to be a total game changer, didn't it? It couldn't just be seen as an upgrade. The sources frame it as a fundamental reinvention, something that changed how business, communication, and technology interact within their world.
Indeed. That launch was the ultimate validation of the entire silent strategy. It had to be. It wasn't just about adding a few new apps to the roster. It was about demonstrating the successful integration of those core principles we just discussed. AI automation run across a unified, highly secure platform in a way that was functional, user-friendly, and delivered tangible benefits. This is really the moment they stopped just promising the movement and started actually delivering the architecture for it.
Right. Let's deep dive into the specific technological elements that define this launch. What were the key pieces unveiled? Starting with, well, the lifeblood of any network communication, we saw the launch of real-time global communications via OConnect 2.0.
OConnect 2.0 had a huge technical mandate behind it. based on the descriptions. For a truly global movement, standard video conferencing just isn't sufficient. The sources really emphasize real-time and global. This suggests the engineers focused heavily on minimizing latency, that annoying delay, and maximizing capacity to handle potentially massive international meetings in high definition. Think about it. It had to be high capacity enough to accommodate potentially the entire founder network simultaneously, and low latency enough to ensure effective communication across vast geographical distances, say, someone in Africa talking seamlessly with someone in Europe without those disruptive delays we often experience.
And presumably the platform's advanced security protocols, like O-Virtual, would have been baked right into O-Connect, ensuring private, secure dialogues.
Oh, absolutely. Security had to be foundational across the board. Unlike many public communication platforms out there that, let's be honest, sometimes struggle with reliable end-to-end encryption or suffer data leaks, O-Connect 2.0, being native to this secure ecosystem, would carry that advanced security integration inherently. The aim was communication secure from, governmental snooping or corporate espionage threats they were clearly concerned about.
Okay, moving from general communication to more intelligent collaboration, we have the introduction of AI-powered tools like OPeer and OChat.
Yes, this is where that AI automation everywhere pillar really starts to come to life in a practical, collaborative context. These aren't described as just basic messaging or networking apps. They're designed to actively assist in teamwork. OChat, for instance, likely utilizes AI for sophisticated automated translation services. Imagine seamless real-time communication between founders who speak different languages. That's a huge barrier removed for a global movement.
That would be incredible. And OPeer, what was its angle?
OPeer seems geared towards leveraging AI for better team organization and efficiency. Think about AI automatically transcribing long collaboration meetings, maybe summarizing them, identifying key action items that came out of the discussion. It might even suggest the most appropriate team members for specific tasks based on their expertise or even their availability, all tracked within the unified ecosystem. It shifts the tools from being just passive aids for communication to being active, intelligent facilitators that help teams achieve their goals faster and smarter.
Makes sense. Next up, something crucial for that financial empowerment pillar we discussed. Marketing and tracking. The sources detail intelligent marketing capabilities through Audit and O-Tracker.
Right. These sound like the analytical engines driving the growth side of the ecosystem. O-Tracker is designed to provide that granular visibility into marketing performance. Where is traffic coming from? Which campaigns are actually generating the highest return on investment? How is user behavior shifting over time? The intelligent marketing aspect implies the AI automatically processes all this complex data to provide highly actionable, maybe even personalized insights. So the user doesn't have to be a sophisticated data analyst themselves to understand what to do next.
Takes the guesswork out. And Audit, what role did that play?
Audit seems to provide the critical audit capability. This really reinforces that core value of integrity and transparency we talked about earlier. It's designed to ensure founders can actually verify the accuracy of the platform's performance metrics for themselves, providing detailed, traceable reports. For small businesses especially who are relying on this system for their growth and income, this combination of intelligent tracking and transparent auditing is absolutely essential. It builds trust and allows for solid strategic planning.
Okay, and finally, the mechanism for commerce and enabling individual business generation. E-commerce, described as the next-level shopping experience provided by O-Shop.
O-Shop appears central to that promise of enabling financial freedom for everyday individuals. The next-level description suggests it aims to overcome the major hurdles that new e-commerce sellers typically face, things like ensuring secure payments, managing inventory complexity, and critically gaining market visibility in a crowded space. O-Shop likely integrates seamlessly with O-Wallet for those instant secure transactions we discussed, and it probably